At sunrise on the set of Secret Hospital, Mary Jane films her soap opera role as Sybil and must kiss a man in one of her climactic scenes. Peter joins his wife on break and comments that she's a good actress, though he is glad the kiss was just part of the script. This remark stirs a flicker of guilt in MJ, as she is reminded of the recent debacle with Jason Jerome and what almost happened between them. As the Parkers sit to eat, MJ says how terrific her one and only husband is, despite not exactly being a gourmet with his choice of fast food. In admission that the food is lacking, Peter begins to playfully charm his wife with all the other things he will give her next time, and MJ leans in with a sultry tease, claiming she wants only one thing from her big guy, a 15-minute wake-up call. As she drifts off against his shoulder, Peter jokingly boasts of his mastery of romance for lulling his wife into a nap. Sometime later, as Peter takes on cardiac, Mary Jane arrives at Aunt May's house and worries that Peter will be late, already thinking up an apology for his absence on their planned visit. As MJ realizes Peter is out as Spider-Man, she reaffirms that she knew what she was getting herself into when she said, "I do." Then, Peter arrives at the last minute, surprising his wife with what he had assumed were flowers. MJ finds the gesture sweet and plays along, stating, "Oh, Peter, you shouldn't have," before tipping her husband off that he presented her with a handful of weeds. The Parkers then make their way inside for lunch, where MJ helps Aunt May prepare, and Peter catches up with May's new boyfriend, Willie. Peace never lasts too long with the Parkers, though, as the fearsome Venom soon makes his menacing return. In response, a protective Peter insists that Mary Jane flee to her sister's house in Pittsburgh for safety. However, MJ protests that he might get killed while she is miles away, and wishing to stay by her husband's side, argues that they are supposed to be partners. Peter affirms that they are, but maintains that he can't watch his own back if he is constantly worried about hers. MJ eventually gives in, though she bitterly hates the decision. Equally miserable, Peter watches sorrowfully as his wife reluctantly departs, admitting to himself that this kind of forced isolation is no way to build a happy marriage. While Peter battles Venom, Mary Jane waits at her sister's house in Pittsburgh, watching her nephews play in the snow. Despite the peaceful setting, she remains consumed by worry, haunted by the unknown of Peter's safety. Her frustration finally boils over when a stray snowball catches her in the face, causing her to sharply vent her pent-up emotions on the kids. As they offer an apology, MJ is instantly struck by regret. To make up for her outburst, she joins the kids for some lighthearted play and promises a round of hot cocoa. Meanwhile, Peter brings his conflict with Venom to a close by faking his death on a secluded island, finally ensuring a safe path for his wife's return. As Christmas approaches, Mary Jane helps decorate the tree at Aunt May's house. While May passes out the Christmas cookies, MJ is happy to see that Christy is enjoying them in moderation and that her eating disorder is resolved. Then Mary Jane anxiously waits for Peter to arrive, thinking to give the mistletoe a heck of a workout when he does. Meanwhile, the object of Mary Jane's affection makes his way to the Bugle, and when he arrives, he snags a special gift for her. Unfortunately, Katzenberg interferes and breaks MJ's gift while making lewd remarks about her, which makes Peter so furious he attacks Katzenberg, causing a scene. To make matters worse, Dr. Octopus has shown up at Aunt May's for an innocent visit, and when Peter sees him, it's the last straw. Peter attacks Otto in a fit of rage. But when Aunt May discovers the battle, Otto apologizes to her for interrupting their festivities and leaves. With his wife and family looking on, Peter is unsure if he was really a hero that evening. At the grand opening of a new Daily Bugle building, Katzenberg makes a crude pass at Mary Jane during Jonah's long-winded speech, but Peter arrives just in time to her delight, delivering a kiss on her cheek. Ignoring Katzenberg entirely, MJ turns to give her husband an affectionate hug. After waiting patiently for Jonah to finish, the Parkers look on as he makes a big reveal, a giant heroic statue of himself at the entrance, bewildering the crowd. However, Peter's spider sense suddenly goes off as the ground begins to shake, and he guards MJ as the statue shockingly crumbles to the ground. Peter tells MJ he has to go, and she says she knows, and to be careful. As Peter investigates what was behind the incident, Mary Jane has moved on with the crowd to the banquet. She soon decides to look for Peter, only to run into Doc Ock, who uses his steel tentacle to grab her by the throat. Doc Ock maintains a relentless chokehold on Mary Jane, threatening to kill her. He then confronts Jonah and reveals he is holding the new Daily Bugle building ransom for $20 million, or a seismic vibration device he planted at the base of the building will shake it to the ground. Meanwhile, Peter is stuck under rubble, and Otto's device shows he has only 52 seconds left before it activates to collapse the building. While Peter desperately works to disarm the device, Dr. Octopus maintains his chokehold on Mary Jane, so Jameson has security attempt to take him down. Fortunately, Peter manages to disarm Otto's device just in time and jumps through the wall to save his wife from the villain's steel grip. Struggling with Ock's arms, he finally sets MJ free, while Otto makes a tactical escape through the wall of the building. The Parkers then share a brief intimate moment, each ensuring that the other is okay. But a hostile and ungrateful Jonah spoils the mood, causing a frustrated Peter to excuse himself and swing away in disgust. At home, the Parkers reunite with a passionate hug, but one mention of Jonah sets Peter off. He is so frustrated and unable to understand why Jonah hates him so much. In response, MJ explains that she thinks Jonah's unique worldview makes him see Spider-Man as someone who breaks the rules and gets away with it. Feeling as though there is some sense to his wife's perspective, Peter is able to calm down a bit, though it doesn't make dealing with Jonah any easier. Some time later, Peter and Mary Jane are cozily cuddled up in bed, sleeping together. But Peter wakes in the middle of the night and stealthily changes into costume to go web-slinging. However, MJ catches Peter in the act, asking her husband where he thinks he is sneaking off to, calling him a workaholic. Peter jokes that he'll take the label as a compliment, and after teasing that he'll check his calendar and see if he can't squeeze her in for lunch, Peter kisses his wife goodbye flirtatiously. Then, he swings off and exuberantly calls back that MJ is such a good sport, he'll eventually have to divorce her, just so that he can marry her all over again. Later at home, Peter vents to MJ about being sidelined and disrespected even though he's a reserve Avenger. But Mary Jane is running late for work and barely registers Peter's complaints, preoccupied with her upcoming soap opera shoot that features a climactic catfight. They exchange hurried kisses before she departs, leaving Peter in a hollow silence. Denied the catharsis he sought, Peter grabs his costume to take to the city skyline. While web-slinging, he thinks about how stressed he's been lately, but MJ is getting on with her life, something he can't seem to do. Returning home that night consumed by self-pity, Peter is discouraged to find MJ already asleep as he was hoping to satisfy his desire for companionship. However, his bitterness instantly dissolves the moment she stirs to snuggle close, murmuring how much she missed him. He then realizes he's not alone and never will be, as long as Mary Jane loves him. It's a heartfelt reminder to finally appreciate the unwavering support he has. In the coming days, Peter arrives home and is greeted by Mary Jane, who is vigorously exercising in vibrant gym wear. She explains that her filming schedule was shifted around, so she came home for the day. Then, while she states that she's trying to burn off some excess calories, Peter looks at his wife's amazing figure and exclaims appreciatively that she looks fine from where he's standing. However, after a playful retort that Peter is only saying it because it's true, Mary Jane suddenly turns faint and collapses, only to be caught by Peter at the last second as he calls out her name in a panic. Peter rushes MJ to the hospital, where the doctors find that she is suffering from a fever of unknown origin that has been sweeping the city. Desperate to find a cause, Peter sets out to investigate, later calling the hospital to check in on his wife. A weak but affectionate MJ remarks that the sound of her husband's voice is the best medicine that she could ask for. However, when the eerie lights of the villain Corona suddenly illuminate the sky, Peter is torn. Despite her illness, MJ insists he leave to save the city. She argues that while she has experts tending to her, her husband is the only expert the city has, and they need him. After a punishing battle with Corona, Peter returns to update MJ on the source of the infection, but learns that young Normie Osborn has fallen ill as well. However, an antidote is found and administered thanks to Peter's efforts, and as Mary Jane begins to recover, she is discharged from the hospital. Despite this, Peter beats himself up over a bad outcome for Corona that he blames himself for, but MJ encourages her husband, explaining that he didn't blow it at all. Just look at how he helped Normie. The Osborns would certainly say Peter was a hero. Soon, the Parkers head over to an art expo with Aunt May, her boyfriend Willie, and Christy. Unfortunately, Peter has an upset stomach from overeating, and when Aunt May worries that Peter didn't eat enough for lunch, MJ sarcastically quips that her husband always knows exactly when to stop. After Peter escorts his wife and Christy into the expo, they find themselves in a room full of extravagant sculptures and are told by one of the event's hosts to make themselves at home. Soon, the group admires an extravagant display featuring the Fantastic Four, and when MJ spots the real Johnny Storm and refers to him as Alicia's dreamboat husband, Peter scoffs, joking that MJ will be starting her own Human Torch fan club next. Seeing heads amongst the crowd begin to turn, the Parkers follow their gaze to the Submariner, who is making his grand entrance, and MJ playfully teases Aunt May that he was checking her out. The mood shifts when Johnny Storm sees Peter and begins to throw insults at him, claiming he simply fades into the woodwork when Spider-Man isn't around, and the two then trade jabs about living off their wives' success. After this, MJ checks on her husband, who is still struggling with his upset stomach, but their attention is diverted to Johnny's wife Alicia, who greets Peter while kindly claiming that Johnny is a big fan of his work. After this, Peter covertly tells MJ he's heading to the restroom, but before he can go, his spider sense suddenly goes off. The windows violently shatter as Peter shields his wife, and after ensuring she is okay, he directs her to get the others to safety. That's when Peter sees the headman and signals MJ to go as he changes into costume to battle. When Peter reappears as Spider-Man, Christy remarks that she never thought she'd see him up so close, and realizing the danger of the situation, MJ responds that it may have been better if she hadn't. As the battle rages, a competitive Johnny gets irritated that Spider-Man is hogging the spotlight in front of Alicia, and Peter soon realizes that both he and Johnny are essentially showing off for their respective spouses. Finally, once the headmen are defeated and the police arrive to clean up the wreckage, Peter finds his hard-earned relief in the restroom. In the coming days, Christy drags Peter into seeing a performance art show with her. However, Peter upsets her a few times, which results in her claiming that Mary Jane married a monster, and she storms off. But Peter soon discovers that villains were behind the performance, and he is sent into a snowy New York by the painter. He tries to call MJ, but can't reach her, and can't swing to the set of the secret hospital in the terrible conditions. While the freak blizzard rages, Mary Jane tries to settle the secret hospital crew with some hot dogs and MTV. But as the conditions get worse, the crew starts to panic again, and MJ tries to revert to dancing as a distraction. But a power outage has her efforts dashed. Fortunately, her husband goes on to save the day once again. Returning home 4 hours late, Peter quietly celebrates, thinking he's off the hook when he finds Mary Jane sound asleep. However, when she wakes, he sheepishly claims he arrived just moments after she drifted off, only for Jonah to call with an urgent assignment. Peter hates to leave her again so soon, but MJ is understanding, and she is already taping their favorite shows for a later viewing. Unfortunately, the assignment forces Peter out of town. While away, Peter calls his wife to confide in her about his difficulties, perhaps feeling less hardened than usual as he shares that he cried over a young boy who died. In response, MJ encourages Peter, insisting they should never get used to seeing such horrors in the world, and that no parent should have to see their child die before them. Then, they say they love each other before ending the call. As the days pass, Peter constantly longs for MJ, regretting the assignment that has kept them apart for so long. Though fleeting memories of past romances occasionally drift through his mind, they are instantly eclipsed by his intense devotion to his wife. When the topic of Gwen Stacy arises during his work, Peter firmly states that he is now happily married to a woman who gives his life more meaning than he thought possible. As more time passes, Peter's loneliness deepens, and he sorely misses MJ's counsel. Finally, with the case concluded, he flies home, eagerly looking forward to seeing Mary Jane, and hoping she can help bring him out of the pessimism he developed while he was away without her. With Peter home at last, the Parkers set out to a charity event for the homeless put on by Jameson. Just as Peter begins to think they may have gotten lost, MJ spots a limo parked outside the Poseidon Hotel, cheerfully announcing to leave it to her to always find the party. As they enter, Peter is stunned by the magnificent interior, and while he grabs refreshments, MJ meets a few secret hospital fans who clumsily try to hit on her. After Flash Thompson startles Peter while dressed as a supervillain, MJ's fans leave, and she tears up the phone numbers they gave her, telling Peter with a knowing smile that she won't be needing them. However, the festive mood is abruptly shattered when the hotel is sabotaged, and Peter goes to investigate while MJ covers for him. Then, the situation gets worse, as the stage collapses on some guests and the electricity goes out, plunging the room into darkness. Amidst the chaos, MJ finds a fleeting moment to think of Peter, praying that he is safe. As Peter battles frantically behind the scenes, Mary Jane and Aunt May move through the wreckage to check on the injured guests. Soon they are able to exit the building with the crowd, and MJ looks up to see her husband locked in a vicious struggle with a villain. Later, after Peter emerges victorious, the Parkers visit the Bugle to see the next phase of the campaign to help the city's homeless. Days later, Peter swings home before a photo assignment and is delighted when he unexpectedly finds Mary Jane there. MJ says it was a surprise as she gives her husband a kiss, explaining that with all he's been through lately, she's felt a little neglectful towards him. To make up for it, she told the secret hospital crew that she was having lunch at home with her husband. As she seductively snuggles up to Peter on the sofa and wraps her arms around him, Peter asks how much time they have. MJ responds with a mischievous smile, 20 minutes, maybe 30, before passionately pulling him down for some long-awaited intimacy. Later that night, however, Peter is too restless to sleep. MJ pries for info, and he admits that he feels guilty because in their recent encounters, he's been letting the Black Fox go instead of bringing him in. Driven by his conscience, Peter declares he must settle the matter before he can go to sleep. However, Peter's mission takes a perilous turn, leading to a brutal encounter with Dr. Doom. After returning home to a few hours of sleep, Peter wakes dazed and disoriented, sparking MJ's immediate worry. She offers to call in sick to the studio to nurse him back to health, but Peter insists he'll be fine. However, Peter later passes out and is taken to the hospital by a coworker. As MJ visits distressed over his condition, Peter can't admit to her that Dr. Doom slammed him through a couple of buildings. Despite the doctor's recommendation to stay overnight, a stubborn Peter insists on going home. Once they arrive, MJ is deeply unsettled by Peter's decision and admits that she doesn't like it, adding that he should have stayed at the hospital. The tension reaches a breaking point when Peter pulls out his costume, determined to finally catch the Black Fox. MJ protests, reminding him that he has a concussion and is in no condition for heroics. After Peter begs for her understanding, she delivers a stinging truth. She has accepted many things she doesn't understand because she loves him, but he cannot ask her to understand suicide. Despite her justified fears, Peter's gamble pays off this time. He successfully apprehends the Black Fox, finally clearing his conscience. Then, in the days that follow, Peter swings high above the city's skyline with his wife, joyfully celebrating his marriage to the greatest love of his life, Mary Jane Watson Parker. After stopping a robbery one evening, Peter returns home to find the bedroom glowing with dozens of flickering candles. He asks if there's been a power failure, but MJ responds with a sultry smirk, noting that she certainly hopes not, as her plans for the night call for a great deal of energy. When Peter asks what the occasion is, she reveals she's been counting, and he hit a major milestone. That morning marked the millionth time he said, "I love you." Calling his wife Tigress, Peter toasts to reaching 2 million, though he is instantly disappointed by the taste of the Diet Ginger Ale. MJ explains it's due to her watching her figure, to which Peter playfully retorts that he is more than happy to handle that particular chore himself. The following day, at a high-profile Roxanne press conference, the atmosphere shifts to business. MJ meets the Black Panther, and Peter captures a striking photo of the two in deep conversation. Afterward, the Parkers discuss the dubious Roxanne Corporation and the looming threat the company poses to the peace and safety of Wakanda. Sometime later, after taking down the Rhino and his gang, Peter returns home and playfully announces he's searching for the ever-luscious Mary Jane Watson Parker, who he finds finishing up her set of 100 sit-ups. He surprises her by producing her wedding ring, which she had fearfully assumed was lost, explaining that he found it in her dressing room on the set of The Secret Hospital. Thrilled, MJ instantly throws her arms around Peter, confessing she was terrified she'd lost it and worried that he would never forgive her. Peter gently reassures her, promising he would have forgiven her immediately. However, he quickly shifts back to a mischievous tone, noting that he's very interested in getting back to that "thank you." On a beautiful spring day, Peter and Mary Jane's romantic carriage ride through Central Park is shattered by a sudden volley of gunfire. After being thrown from the carriage, MJ looks up from the ground dazed, only to find that she is held at gunpoint by mercenaries. She begins to stall for time, allowing Peter a window to slip away and switch to his alter ego. The gunmen reveal they are aware of Peter's alleged connection to Spider-Man, but their interrogation is cut short. Peter abruptly distracts them with a web line, giving MJ an opening to pelt one attacker with a rock, only to immediately have another gun pulled on her. After he again intervenes with a precision web ball, MJ realizes she is a vulnerable liability in the crossfire and uses the opening to flee to safety. However, as Peter begins wrapping up the battle to the sound of wailing sirens, he is startled when MJ rushes back to him, believing that the battle is over. She breathlessly announces that she couldn't simply desert her husband and had already alerted the police. The moment is shattered when a final attacker viciously lurches at the pair, swinging a weapon with deadly intent, and Peter frantically shoves MJ out of harm's way, shouting for her to escape. This time, however, Peter realizes MJ is too consumed by worry to leave. He spots her watching from behind a nearby tree and swiftly swings away to lure the gunman into the distance. Desperate to keep him in sight, Mary Jane runs straight into the path of blaring police cars. She hurriedly briefs the officers before racing after Peter's trail once more, only to watch in horror as he is pulled beneath the city streets, where the trail goes cold. Returning home, a determined Mary Jane invites Felicia Hardy over, in the hope that she will help track down her husband. After updating her on the dire situation, MJ asks if Felicia still cares for Peter. Felicia confirms she does, explaining that while their intimate relationship may be long over, she never wants to see him hurt. MJ is reassured that they have common ground to work from, and while knowing it's out of her league to rescue Peter herself, she gives Felicia a spider tracer device so the Black Cat can have the best chance at it. After a successful mission, Peter returns home to a tremendous sense of relief from MJ, and she welcomes him back with a passionate kiss. Meanwhile, from the skylight above, the black cat watches the Parkers' tender reunion before making her exit. Days later, a restless Mary Jane is bored at home, and while Peter offers a suggestive cure for her boredom, MJ jokingly claims that's all he thinks of and suggests they get out and go clubbing with Flash and Felicia and maybe the Osbournes. However, Peter has other ideas to give MJ some fun and suddenly webs her to the ceiling. Realizing she is stuck, MJ tells him the joke's over, though she flirtatiously admits that Peter looks handsome before warning him not to do anything too out of line. Peter merely teases her with a few kinky ideas of his own while kissing her, and then reveals that his webs take about an hour to dissolve, and in the meantime, he knows where she is most sensitive. The next day, the mood changes to something far more somber, as Peter reveals he needs his black suit to help disguise him in his next mission, but MJ's hatred of Venom reignites feelings of dread, and she says seeing the suit would be too much. But Peter insists, reminding MJ of why he is Spider-Man, and while he understands that the suit terrifies her, there are victims in the city who need help. In a raw moment of honesty, MJ confesses that she sometimes has difficulty coping with his career, not because he's Spider-Man or he may get hurt, but because deep down she knows she can't help him and she'd love to be able to. At times, even feeling guilty that she can't. Sympathizing with his wife, Peter offers to ask another hero to take his place this time, but MJ says no, do what he needs to, and wear the costume he needs for it. She just doesn't want to see it. As Peter puts on his black costume, he admits that MJ puts up with a lot in their marriage, and he owes her for it in a big way. In the coming days, the topic of having children comes up for the Parkers. MJ admits that she's thought about it a lot, and she often flips between being gung-ho to gun-shy on it. Peter agrees and is also unsure, due to the large responsibility, as well as any possible health complications his altered genes could cause for a potential child. Seeking clarity, Peter goes to talk to Beast to discuss the genetic risks. Beast confirms that there is indeed a significant chance of complications for any offspring Peter might have. This news, coupled with a harrowing near-death experience, leaves Peter shaken. He fears leaving MJ and a potential child vulnerable and fatherless. Finally, Peter returns home to have a heart-to-heart with MJ, and they both decide to wait for now given the current chaos of their lives, as they have plenty of time to decide on having children later. Peter tenderly promises that if and when they are ready, they will be the best parents anyone has ever had. To this, Mary Jane lovingly embraces her husband in mutual support and agreement. Soon, the Parkers go out to eat at a restaurant together, but upon arriving, Peter admits that he is feeling unwell. MJ says he should be home in bed and encourages him to take it easy on himself. She then suggests that he let the police take some of the load for a night while he recovers from his illness. Peter thinks of this compromise and how, coming from his wife, it sounds like good advice. Then, as they sit together, Peter reflects on how MJ always makes him feel amazing and how marrying her is the best thing that ever happened to him. Some time later, the Parkers head over for a visit with Aunt May. While there, Peter takes a private moment to confide in MJ, recounting the details of his earliest days as Spider-Man, from his brief flashy stint in show business to the shattering tragedy of Uncle Ben's death. Their quiet afternoon is abruptly interrupted by a news report detailing a wave of violence involving an unidentified costumed suspect. Driven by duty, Peter rushes off to intervene, quickly throwing out a clumsy excuse to his aunt for his sudden departure. As MJ scrambles to corroborate Peter's story, Aunt May looks her in the eye and calmly reveals that she knows Peter is lying. Mary Jane is instantly gripped by alarm, fearing the secret is finally out. However, May explains her theory. She believes Peter is merely sneaking off to take dangerous crime photos for the Bugle and is only lying to spare her the worry. MJ exhales with relief, realizing that Aunt May's discovery hasn't uncovered Peter's true double life after all. One evening, Mary Jane is alone at home, feeling uncharacteristically depressed as she watches a childhood favorite movie which features men wearing funny costumes. She realizes now, however, that the movie is actually terrible, though she admits to herself with a smirk that she clearly still has a thing for grown men in funny costumes. Suddenly, MJ overhears a noise, hoping it is Peter, but by the time she is able to look, no one is there. Meanwhile, Peter thinks of how close he was to being seen by MJ, and he was only checking in to ensure she's safe before resuming his hunt for vermin. After striking out on his search, Peter eventually returns home to lie in bed with his wife, but while his body is still, his haunted thoughts keep him wide awake. Soon after, the Parkers join Aunt May to visit the graves of Peter's parents. As they stand in somber silence, May begins to reminisce about Peter's father, describing him as a man of vibrant energy and a wonderful sense of humor. However, as she speaks, Peter's mind begins to play tricks on him, and he imagines the monstrous vermin clawing his way out of the grave. Peter visibly freaks out, prompting a worried May to ask what's wrong as he declares they need to leave immediately. Seeing Peter's distress, MJ confides in him about the fears he is facing, as graveyards aren't Peter's favorite place, ever since his final encounter with Craven. But Peter explains to MJ that it's not Craven that's bothering him, it's vermin, and he must find the creature, and until he can bring him in, the dead can wait. Not long after Peter deals with vermin, the Parkers prepare to go visit Aunt May, and they have plans to visit friends at the club afterward, but Peter has been distracted all evening. After a quiet dinner with Aunt May and saying their goodbyes, Peter admits to Mary Jane that his mind is wrapped up with Spider-Man. But MJ begins to protest, claiming Peter is off duty and being Spider-Man 24/7 isn't fair. In that moment, Nova flies overhead, causing Peter to declare that the club will have to wait. He is to go. Fuming, MJ storms off to continue the night on her own, and Peter realizes that something has been bugging her lately. Soon, the Parkers visit Aunt May again, and she brings out tea and cookies as MJ insists that she does not need to cater to them. Just then, May realizes that she forgot about the professional wrestling match on TV. While May is occupied with the match, Peter says he'll go out for a swing, but when MJ asks to join him, Peter clues her that he meant swing literally. Kissing his wife on the cheek, he says to turn off the TV if May's blood pressure gets too high, but MJ jokes that in doing so, she's not sure if she'd live to tell about it. A short time later, Peter returns to May's to pick up Mary Jane, and after they leave, MJ senses that her husband is feeling down on their visit to the Bugle. When she asks what's wrong, Peter gives a cryptic answer, but MJ does not pry, and she takes Peter's hand as they walk together. Later at the Bugle, the truth eventually comes out in a private moment between the Parkers. Peter's swing earlier that day had actually been a harrowing life-or-death battle, and when dealing with another hero, Peter was reminded of Uncle Ben's death, and he only hopes his efforts weren't in vain. That evening, at dinner, Peter says he ought to start sharing the cooking since MJ has been working so much, but his spider sense fires, and he must leave. Mary Jane walks into the dining room and finds Peter's clothes scattered on the floor. With a knowing smirk, she calls for Peter, announcing that the trail of clothing can only mean two things. Either he's really happy to see her, or he's swinging out of the skylight as Spider-Man. As MJ realizes it's the latter that's true, she doesn't know what dire emergency caused her husband to leave so suddenly, but she hopes that he will be careful.